Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 7 of Healing the Divide. I am so grateful to be sitting down today with Noa Kamrat Pundak to speak to us about life in Israel, the Israel-Palestine conflict, what's happening in the Middle East, and Noa's joining us from Israel today, and really just hoping to get a deeper sense of um, not only the political and philosophical issues, but really being a human being, living a day to day life amidst what's going on in that area of the world. And so, just to offer a introduction and a little bit of background about Noah. So Noah Kamrat Pundak was born and raised in Israel and grew up in the picturesque north of the country. She's an accomplished organizational consultant and yoga teacher with a rich background in psychodynamic and systemic organizational consultation and group facilitation. During the last 2 years, she's been working with IDF soldiers, focusing on emotional resilience, trauma prevention, and PTSD management. In the past month, she has been facilitating groups of soldiers returning home from combat zones, helping them process their personal and team experiences to prevent and identify trauma. Recently, Noah came back to South Florida, where I live, with her children from Israel. She was on a relocation period for a while in Jupiter, Florida, going back a few years, where she did her yoga teacher training with me, and that's how we met. So it's really an honor to pick up this conversation, to connect in friendship and in curiosity, in connection around the healing tools that we find through yoga and see how they're showing up in different environments. Today, we're going to talk about her personal experience within the traumatic context following the events of October 7th. So, Noah, thank you so much for your amenability just to being here today and being in this conversation amidst all that's happening where you are. To take the time for this means so much to me, and I know that all of our listeners will be grateful to have a different perspective than the one that comes through turning on your chosen propaganda network on the screen, and really speaking to a human being that is not only living amidst it, but as the name of the podcast suggests, Healing the Divide, you are at ground zero, bringing healing tools directly to combat and people who have been engaged in combat, while simultaneously living through the experience yourself, having family members that are directly impacted, stretching to really capacities I can't imagine. And so for you to stretch even further, to say yes to this conversation, to create the time, but also the space energetically amidst what you're processing, um, I really don't have words, just so much love and so much gratitude. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I was wondering where to sit. My instinct was to sit outside to show you the nature that do not feel anything of it. It's so beautiful outside today. But I felt that I need a space which will be a container for me by speaking. So I need, maybe after thinking about it again, need a small space. I'm here in the shelter, by the way, but so it's very small, but I feel that I need a container right now. And I think this is maybe the first thing people need here, especially now. And so just to share this with you for start.
I feel like there's so much in even symbolically. So the literal physical container that we need to stay safe, and then the emotional container of how we carry what we're moving through. And this is some of the content I'd love to get into. And as it pertains to the larger conflict, I want to share with our listeners, I recognize the sensitivity of this subject matter. My intention is to tread lightly and considerately. I want to honor boundaries and sensitivities that and the recognition that there might be things, because I'm culturally removed from this, that I might not have awareness around. And so I enter into this conversation, obviously with the two of us asking and already having received consent, but I want to further acknowledge that if there's anything that we touch upon that just doesn't feel like an area you want to enter into, please know I deeply respect and honor you and the boundaries that you need to be where you
That's,
are in your own process.
thank you so
And
much for that. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
absolutely. And I want, ultimately in episodes, I want to hear from people in all different sides of what's
Mm-hmm.
happening and try to make sense. But I think that's so important. So we'll be doing more podcasts that are about this topic and other global conflicts, and really trying to understand them from the human level. And so
Mm-hmm.
Noah, I really wanted to start there. I know that this conflict did not begin on October 7th, that this is generations old, and really in the last 75 years, and then there's been various benchmarks along the way, inflection points we could say, beyond the sort of larger geopolitical perspectives. I would love to just glean an understanding of the human experience in the day-to-day life, and maybe if we were to take in the most recent context October 7th from the Israeli side, for somebody that is in the healing community working with IDF soldiers pre and post 10/7, what is your experience like? What are you moving through right now? What was it like on the lead up? How have the last few months been for you and for your family?
Well, um, I'm in the trauma right now. Not, it's very difficult for me to analyze it from, because I have no perspective or enough perspective, so I cannot zoom out yet. But I feel the trauma in the body, in my heart. It's painful. It's full with pain, and I see pain around,
Mm,
from both sides, by the way. But I see it's very close. It's not like theoretically or something that you read on the news. It's here around people that I know. Um, they didn't come back, which is crazy. I want to explain to you something about the complex situation, the complex reality that we live. Once, when you imagine the word soldier, it's like usually you imagine someone who choose this profession, who is to be in the military. In Israel, it's a duty. So all the people actually, once they are 18, need to go to the army. I was there too, all my brothers. So it's a duty, which is crazy. Okay, so we are, people like me or friends who are so sensitive, so contained, um, must go to this context of army.
mm,
By the way, it was very meaningful for me. I was a social worker in the army, and I remember even once I had always candies in my pockets to give to children all
wow.
over. So I wanted to be the good girl, the good
Right.
one. Sorry. So so this is one point. And here again, even now, after you finish the army, girls do it for 2 years, guys for 3 years. And again, it's a duty. After you finish high school, you go to, I have a daughter now. She will be there in 2 months. She has to. Yeah, yeah. And by the way, I'll she just told me 2 days ago, Mommy, can you imagine that we are in a war? In a war, it's legitimate, right, to kidnap soldier or kill soldier. It's kind of legitimate. And I'm going to be this soldier. So, and I stand there. I didn't know what to tell her. Because again, once we have an image of a soldier,
Yeah.
it's something really different from reality. So everything is combined here. So there are not borders. So people who used to live their normal life with their kids had to go to the army and to do their service to the combat area and didn't come back. Some of them didn't come back, and it's so I feel that the context full of pain, and it's hurtful. And you know some people, and you feel 10 days after October 7th, I was here by myself with the kids. My husband was in Florida. He lived there for the last 2 years. So we were kind of separate, not technically, yes, just technically, but he was not here. By the way, he flew in the same day on October 7th morning.
Oh,
I
wow.
will maybe I'll describe it later. This scene of like a movie, but so I was here by myself, and I after a couple of alarms, and I had an anxiety attack, and I decided to go to Florida just to breathe, to breathe literally, and so I asked him to invite for us a ticket. I was in panic. Yeah, so I was in panic, literally. And I forgot what I want to say. Sorry, Scott, you will. Um,
Yeah, that I understand in this kind of event. Yeah.
uh, so I couldn't breathe here. This is the point. I really couldn't breathe, literally. I felt that I have responsibility to protect my kids. And there was such an uncertainty if we are safe here in our house. This was the shock. I think the real shock was that the people were in their house, the most protected
Hmm.
place as you imagine it. And so I didn't know if we are safe here, if I can protect my kids, if someone will come. And this was the atmosphere. So it shake all your ground. It's so scared. I was so scared. So this was the situation on October 7th. Or sorry, I know. We arrived to Florida, and people here were so in such doing mode to help, to do things, to like wow, the community here was amazing. People just packed food and equipment to the soldiers and prepare many things. And I called a friend from there, from Florida, and I told her, if you want me to support someone emotionally, I can do it from Florida. I wouldn't do it from Israel right now because I cannot support anybody. I'm in such an anxiety, but in Florida I feel protected. So let me
Mm.
speak. And she said there are so many mothers, they are in panic attack to send their kids now to the army, to the combat area. Can you speak with them? So I find myself from Florida, from Jupiter, speaking with mothers who were, wow, in a panic attack and an anxiety attack too, and help to try to contain them. I didn't tell them that I'm not there, but I could do it. I felt that I did. I give them kind of container to this huge anxiety, and it's a tragedy again from both sides. But it's after, in the end, it's young people who live their life. with kids, with in their jobs. So they are living their normal life, and they get called to just to leave everything. And so this is the context, which is so everything is combined. No really boundaries here, which make everything more complex and more emotional. Even now, I feel it in the body when I speak. Literally, like the body is shaking. I feel my heartbeat. I'm still here. I'm still in the event, in the trauma. It's happening still now. 136 people are not at home, are in Gaza. Again, normal people, kids, families, brother, sister, mother, fathers that just kidnapped from their homes. And I must say something about those people specifically because most of the people who were killed and who were kidnapped are from the kibbutzes near the border of Gaza. And most of them were peace people, really a peace people from the left side, who like live the peace in their day-to-day life. They used to do so many gestures of peace actively, took people from Gaza to hospital in Israel and try to give jobs to the people from Gaza to work together and really do active things to be together, to live in peace, to give messages of peace. And this was the shock for me, like those people who try so hard to fight for peace and demonstrate peace in the day-to-day life, they are the ones who were kidnapped. By the way, people from Gaza came with maps sometimes, with the map of the place, with the houses and family names. And again, this was a shock for, again, as a peace person, it's a shock. And the other group of people who hurted was the people in the party, again, party of celebrating life, celebrating music. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a Burning Man style festival.
Like a festival.
Festival, yeah. So this is the kind of people, very spiritual, just came to celebrate life, celebrate nature. It was in the desert, under the stars. It's very romantic and naive contexts. And like in the same days, I felt that the pure evil, which celebrates murder, came to the pure good in these two contexts of the kibbutzes and the group of these people who celebrate life. So, and it's again we didn't understand yet in the beginning what's going on. So I just remember a shock, and I text to a friend of mine who lived just nearby, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No, we are not okay." It was at 8 in the morning, 8 a.m. And I asked him, "What is going on?" He said, "It's crazy. I have terrorists in my gardens." But again, I didn't capture yet. I didn't understand yet. The word crazy cannot capture the situation. Like, it was crazy. But I didn't realize yet what is going on. So you asked me about the situation. It was a shock. It's still a shock. There was a lot of uncertainty. Again, we live 2.5 miles from the east border of Israel. It's and I'm not sure if I'm safe here in my house. This is the feeling. It's not easy. And again, it's tragedy for all this area. I pray for peace for years. I fight for peace. I demonstrate for peace. I demonstrate for two states, for two people, and I really try to promote it, to be active. So
Mhm.
this is, I was broken, like I had no words. And I think as a yoga teacher, I really felt the anxiety in the body so strong. It was like a tsunami. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and again, from the inside out, the not only what's happening in the concrete sense, in the material sense, but what's happening internally, and the proximity to such violence, and the idea of sending our children
Wow.
towards that. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even. That's like that's the red line, That's like that's the one where it's like, good for what, for whose battle we say it's duty, but like, do we align with the intentions behind the policies between, what's really happening there, and so I wanted to unpack some of that, but I wanted to pause at the place where you shared when you came to Florida, you had a greater sense of capacity to show up in service to these other moms who are actually in the same position that you're in, with your daughter being so close. And it's incomprehensible. So I guess I have two parts to the question. One, did you have to compartmentalize your personal experience of being like, that's my situation as well, in order to draw upon this capacity? Or were you including yourself in those healing tools? And then part two to this question is, what are the healing tools that actually offer benefit to a parent who is getting ready to send a child into this conflict, or to one whose child is there? Um, Maybe we can put this into, I don't know if these are different tool sets, but to people who are coming home, IDF soldiers that are coming home, or to maybe families who have, family members that are hostages, like, still of the 136 people there. So what are these tools that you're drawing, that are shown to be effective, even if, in obviously they're not changing the situation for the ones that are in it, but to give them the capacity to maybe be with it in a way that doesn't overwhelm and overrun their nervous
Mhm.
system? And so, yeah, I would love to hear. I think that would be really powerful to hear what exactly you're sharing.
Right. I will start from the first part of your question about the ground that we are on. Sorry. I realized that you need a stable ground in order to support. You cannot support if you are shaking. You can, but it's very challenging, and I'm not sure it's effective. I couldn't do it from here. I needed to be in Florida and feel safe in order to be able to speak to parents and to listen, to really listen and to be with them, and not with my fears and anxiety and shaking. So it was interesting to see it. I called someone and I told her, try to refer me to many parents as you can while I'm here in Florida. And it's interesting to think about it, how you need, in the airplane, they tell you to put your mask first as a mother and then put it on your child face. And it's so true. You cannot support anybody without oxygen, literally.
Mhm.
And and then maybe it's lead to the second part of your question, how to support yourself first, or how to give support to people who come back from combat area after experience, very tough thing. And first, I want to thank you again for the yoga gift, yoga teacher training gift. Thanks so much. It saved me during this period of time. I try to do yoga, to practice yoga. It's like it's my beginning of the day and my end of the day, and I'm trying to stick for it. It's it's so important. It's so valuable for me, and it's saved me. The breath is a great tool for me to come back to myself, to the body, even to the body. Usually we say to the soul, but here literally to the body.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I find myself doing lots of breath work during this time. And I realized that the context here right now is so tough and hard. If I need to find an image about, it's like an iron, the feeling. So, and I feel the space needs softness in so many ways. The body needs softness. The people here around need softness. So many blame feeling and shame feeling and confusion, uncertainty, and one, I think, an anxiety. I know it's from my psychodynamic study. When you are in an anxiety, the tendency is to be to polarize, to do a binary, to think binary, good or bad, dark or light. So, and even this binary thinking is so tough, is so not flexible. So the tendency is to divide and split things into two. And I feel that my mission here is to spread softness. Even, people, I listen now, people tend to speak to themselves. So, in what the tough words, with tough words. And I'm trying to, when I listen to this or when I hear it, I say, please tell yourself 9 things right now. You need this softness. Forgive yourself. So this is just theoretically, maybe general. It's not a tool yet, but again, I feel that the softness is so needed here. In this context of conflict, of war. By the way, even the word war, it's crazy. Like it's sometimes, I heard it. Maybe it's the second time in my life that I'm in a war. Literally, I'm in a war environment, which is I just even the word war is so scary. It's frightening, and
Absolutely.
it's make your body tough. So I feel on one hand I need to spread softness, very like light of softness in the day-to-day life, but this is like very general. And maybe I'll explain and I will talk about myself for a minute. Even with the
Sure.
softness, it's a tricky thing because even in yoga, I feel now that I speak in 2 different languages that do not always meet. One is the yoga language of connection, of softness and acceptance, and to listen and observe the lesson in everything. Maybe there is a reason for the thing, although they are so tough, and to relax and to let go of defense mechanism, to come back to the real true self. So to let go of things. This is one language. On the other hand, I feel that the other language is to function, a functional language, to be active, to be even activist in so many ways, to say things, to spread your messages, um, again, actively, and to function. You cannot just disconnect or yourself from reality, which I tempt. It's very tempting to, again, I try not to see the news, TV, no thanks. As you say, so many propagandas and information and mixture of facts and opinion and virtual things. And again, so you cannot, it's a chaos. On the other hand, I have no privilege to be disconnect. I feel that I have a role. I need to function and to do something actively. And first, it's different languages. Even in the yoga, once I'm trying to relax, I let myself relax in 75%, not more. I feel that I need the 25% of control to stay there in order to protect me. Otherwise, I can fall apart, and I'm not sure I will be able to gather it again.
Mm.
So I play within these two languages, and it's challenging, and sometimes there is contradiction between them. And now I will think together with you about the tools that I try to share with. Maybe I will give you an example of what I'm doing with the soldiers, people who
Sure.
came back.
Before we go into the tools in
Yeah.
the specificity, um, I'd love to pause and um, just share maybe some thoughts on on what you just spoke to, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and this. It's interesting to go back to the context of when we're in a state of trauma, the brain doesn't have the capacity to hold the nuance. And
Mm-hmm.
so we go binary, and then from the binary, everything starts to split. This is the good, the evil, the right, the wrong, the this or that. And then um, it was interesting to hear you describe these two different sort of functions. One that was sort of the drawing out of the materialism and into the deeper nature of self. And you described it as the softness, the connection, the observing, the truth, etc. And giving got about 75% or so to that part. And then this other side that's like the more engaged, active to activist, the functional, that is in service of protection. And that was like your 25. And um, I was thinking like for this would just be fun to unpack because I think I hold it a little bit differently. And I would be I would be interested in exploring that together in service of everybody that might be listening. I see that bifurcation as the binary,
Okay.
and that the yoga isn't just the softness, the what's behind the materialism, but the actual yoking of how we can hold both and not even see them really as both, which implies plurality, but one conduit, one spectrum, and then to find non-antithetical opposites where they appear and most powerfully where they appear to be at odds with one another, to see and search for, first of all, like safe ground, like you said, so that we can create container, and then within container apply the tools that we'll get to in a moment. But that way it's not a back and forth either or, the unmanifest and the manifest, but really like to come into the deeper relationship with what is true, so that I can live in an engaged and active way from that truth and as that truth. And I can see you as that truth. And maybe that's the consciousness that is missing in this conflict in so many ways, because once we start separating into factions, then we're operating under the fundamental premise of separation, which is the misperception that drives the identity into these polarizing spaces, which makes it easier to justify violence and continue to foment it. And so to the degree that we can actually ground our nervous systems, I think when we get into tools, we'll see a lot of this isn't about philosophical reframing and mindset shifts. These are helpful things for us to talk about in moments when capacity is available to us. But because trauma is, first off, generational, right? Like we're inheriting so much by what type of environment we're in, what the beliefs of our home and our culture and our country and the energy that lives in these spaces. And then that's like less about even the experience and more about the imprint of the experience upon our nervous systems. So to be able to not bypass as in to exclude the mind, but the necessary first step of coming to the body through, like you said, the breath and also just physical things we can get into, somatic practices that can regulate the nervous system, things like polyvagal theory and exercises that can restore ventral vagal functioning in their nervous system so we can, like you said, literally breathe again. And then from that more regulated space, start to assess the situations with greater clarity, whether that's intrapersonal, interpersonal, collective, at whatever cultural, lens we want to bring it to. And then we can start to go, well, what does my activism look like? So now my engagement isn't just like a reactive protection energy, although that might be very necessary at times, like when what you described with your friend, and hers is in my garden. And so by no means am I trying to bypass that. But when we are able to be safe physically in the physical sense, can we then ground our nervous systems and then start to go, well, what can we do about this? And I see you being here on this call today as that. I see you coming to Florida in order to more deeply serve your community as that. And it seems to me that it's not I did it and now I'm done and I'm off to the next thing. Like it's these chronological steps, and it's this sort of moment by moment dance that we're in that implores us to really be present and in devotion to the state of our own and each other's nervous systems. And when we're able to do that and we have access to tools, then we can have ultimately access to capacity. And when we have access to capacity, we can have access to connection. And if we can have access to connection, maybe then we can have access to real, genuine shifts in the physical material condition that we're sharing together as humans.
Thank you for saying that. It's so true. And again, I'm in this situation. Probably even my thinking is still kind of sometimes binary. And the binary thinking is a defense mechanism. It's a very effective one, by the way. You split the unbearable parts into the other,
Yeah.
you split or you project.
Compartmentalize
You
it.
project. You
And
project. You project the unbearable parts into other who are not you. So I'm the good. Yes. So this is the mechanism. It's very effective. It has a very severe price usually, but that is maybe the 25%. Sometimes I feel that I need protection. So in a way, I cannot do the full process now. In this time, I cannot do a full awareness process. I'm aware that it's still dangerous to do it. And so I leave
Mm-hmm.
25% of not doing it. I can see it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's very undeveloped parts. Yes, to do a splitting, it's undeveloped. The Melanie Klein, which I love, she's a psychotherapist. She speak about two mental states, and one is the ability to integrate. This is the high one, to integrate between things. It's not this or this, it's both. It's together. It can be this and this. And this is a higher mental state and mental and emotional state of mind. And once people are in an anxiety, they do to go to um, less developed mechanism like splitting. So they cannot cope
Mm-hmm.
and process it right now. They cannot. So they split it away from themselves. And I guess I still do it too with the awareness, with the tools. I feel that I cannot let go of all the defense mechanism. I need them now still because I'm still in the event is here. It's still happening. But so thank you for reflecting me that maybe I do it too right now. The binary thinking. Yoga is the opposite, is the ability to, as you say, the ability to see you as a whole with all the parts and the good ones, the dangerous ones, the scary ones, and to look at it just without judgment, to accept it. I feel that I can do it just in 75% right now because I'm not in a higher state of, I didn't arrive there yet. And you offered me to speak with your friend who is Palestinian, right? In the beginning, when we
Mm.
speak, it was an idea. And before October 7th, I would love to do it. I will love to do it. Of course, to listen to someone who think and have different narrative than me, and to hear his story, to be curious about his story, to be able to be empathy, to give him empathy, to hear, to feel, to be together in this. And I feel that I am not capable yet to do it again right now. And maybe again, this is the undeveloped a defense mechanism that I'm not yet there yet. I cannot do integration right now, even with my parts. So not yet with others.
It's
Although,
interesting. Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. Go ahead. Yeah.
mhm. Sorry. Yeah, I'm with you.
You guys. So, yeah, I want to be. This is one of those areas to tread very sensitively because so we're speaking the same language of sort of fragmentation and integration. And so when I shared what I shared about yoga, I'm speaking more from the 30,000 foot view, full picture, which is a privileged position of being here in away from the conflict. And now, whether this is a war that is taking place that we find ourselves in, or it feels like an emotional war that we're in, so any kind of heartbreak, any type of grief, etc. We just because we know the end point, we still start at the starting point. And when if we were to bypass to a to a prematurely to a perspective of integration before we get to fully feel the pain, then then we're actually doing more damage by not letting it process. So that's one side. So I want to be really present here for a moment to the nuance of this process because I think it's kind of at the heart of the entire journey. And so there's one version of this, what it could look like, that we could come into it without any notion of integration and just be completely enmeshed in the narrative, in the story, and the self identity with the emotion itself, and collapse into the suffering of that experience. And there is then another polarity to that where we can then go into the seeing of nuance and holding a more peaceful, resolved version of the experience, without getting to feel the pain. And so, if we were to try to find a more skillful means to navigate these sorts of processes, as I understand it, at the current evolution of my own consciousness, that's my disclaimer, it would be to the best of our ability in any given moment or situation, find the capacity to be with it without being it, to give space to feel what I'm feeling, to not hit the fast forward button and rush that process before we're genuinely ready to. I actually think it's incredible that you were able to say, I'm not there yet, or I still hold these parts of me in these spaces. So I don't say it as a judgment or a repudiation, more of a clarification of the entire concept of what yoga is. Now, given that, we can then enter into the journey of that experience and say, this is one of the gifts of time, is that it gives us the time to be with the experience that we're having and let it move through us in service of its ultimate release and integration of that part of ourselves. The tendency to compartmentalize what is too big for us to process and do it in baby chunks, to essentially titrate that process, to move in and back out, to pendulate that process, is so vital to the intention of integration. So it's not a boom, we're integrated, and or I'm just getting pulled under. And so it's like finding enough support to call in capacity to process and metabolize. We need to metabolize the experience that we're having. And so, yeah, having that sort of that blend of the philosophical and the psychological, and let them start to commingle with one another, really is the process. So as I hold it and understand it. And so, I wanted to shape a little more maybe detail in that environment. And I agree, though, what remains unmetabolized, if we only fragment, and then we go, okay, that's my new status quo, that's what I've normalized, then that's living in the suppressed and repressed space, and that will get projected. And so we want to find this nuance where we can validate it without staying there, and know that we're still working on it simultaneously.
So again, there is a gap between the mind and the heart. There is still a gap, because I agree. I think it's so important to understand our situation collectively and personally right now. I'm broken. I'm not integrated, internally integrated right now. And I guess both sides are in the same situation, so tough situation, emotionally, mentally, physically. So the environment here is again tough. But so I know, I feel it again. I feel it. It's even stronger than words. And I know that the tragedy now is it's a general tragedy. It's so sad. It's so sad. I want to cry. Um,
We
it's a
can.
tragedy. We can. That's true. It's sad. I think about so many mothers who lost their kids in both sides. It's crazy. It's so, and again, I am. We are. We have all many voices in our heads of maybe there is a bigger interest that we are just a checkmate. I don't know. They are there. I must say they are there, but you don't understand what's going on. It's too crazy, too much. What a regression of humanity. In 2023, I gave so much more credit to humanity. So what a regression. And it's very sad. And so I know I feel it. Again, I feel it too. And I'm there. I don't know what to do. I have no solutions. I just feel it, and I'm very sad about it. And again, I can speak about leadership here, which is so not 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 function as a container all over the world right now. So again, I'm not sure. And maybe it's not this conversation to speak about interest, but I feel there are so many interests around, and we need to protect ourselves from these too. So there are so many more noises here in this tragedy. And right now, I feel that my capacity is to be in those feelings, just to feel it, and to be here and to give a space, as you said, to give a space to understand that this is it, and to respect this sadness. It's and disappointment and my broken heart. I can feel it. I can observe it, and I, even again, I think words cannot describe it. You just feel it like that. And right now, I'm trying again to help myself with some tools to manage life in this crazy and difficult situation and sad situation, and to give other people too again some tools that will enable them to continue and to function in a way in this tough context.
Mhm. Can you share some of the tools? Can we get into that a little bit? If that does that feel
Yeah, of
in
course.
reach in this moment? And I'm happy to we can talk about them. We can also do them if if talking about this brings things up. And I am always present and available for, hey, let's take a time out. Yeah, sit up tall
Yeah.
and
So
take a
let's
few breaths.
yeah, definitely. So we can bring our left hand to the heart and right hand to the stomach, and let's breathe. Inhale while inhaling. Let the air enter the body, and while exhaling, think into the ground or chair. Inhale, spread the chest, and while exhale, slowly think more. And let's bring our attention to the breath. Let's bring our awareness to the feeling of the legs touching the ground, feeling the stable ground beneath us. feel that there is something to hold us, so we cannot really fall. The ground is stable, it's here. Relax the face, relax the shoulders. Maybe notice where is our mind right now, what is there, and if we see something, without judgment, we can say hello to everything that comes. And when it will be ready, it will continue and leave our body or mind. Maybe it's an opportunity to tell ourselves something nice, something soft, to acknowledge our effort, our intentions. And slowly and gently can open our eyes when we are ready.
Thank you, Noah. That was so powerful. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, to know that that ground is always already here and it is actually us, like that is the ground of being.
Mhm.
It's so powerful. And yeah, it's really at the heart of me reaching out to you is just being so curious about how these practices can show up in these moments and these places. Do they just go out the window or do they mean even more? Um, and so when you're working with yeah, just with human beings at various points of this journey and various relationships to the conflict, what are the tools that you have found to be the most helpful?
A very popular word right now is resilience. How to develop resilience. In this tough context, you need resilience to survive. And there is a model which I like. Maybe I will send it to you. I'm sure it's in English too. It's someone in Israel who dealt with trauma a lot, develop it. And he gave some factor that can build resilience and help people to cope. Of course, the first one is the physical element of doing or sport or yoga, something with the body. This is the first one. The other one is a social network, which can support, so again, even community and sharing your experience. So thank you again for letting me share my experience. It's so important to share it, to communicate it, so people will be able to see you, your fragile state of mind, your fragile situation. So he gave list of some things that can build resilience. One of them, again, is even the spiritual aspect, to give reason to people. Sometimes they believe that there is reason for everything, and there is lesson in everything, even in such a difficult time. There is something that we need to learn and take and improve. So he gave list of things which I like to share with people, so they know that they can. Even the list, sometimes it's organized your anxiety, and it gives you some guidelines of how can I build my resilience. So it's give the responsibility back to you, bring it back, the sense of
Very
control.
empowering.
Yeah, so I like it.
What is the
Um,
name of the model?
the name in Hebrew is Gesher Me'ached, which it's the name of the first letter of every aspect. I
Okay.
will share it with you, and maybe you can put it on your site
I
or.
can put it, yeah, I can put it with the show notes. So if yeah, folks are listening to the podcast, I'll make sure they're in the summary in case they want to read about it. And it's
Mhm.
funny, in last night we were in our 300-hour teacher training, and we're discussing somatic healing practices. So we were working from some trauma texts and trauma tools, and really looking at body and breath, and things like tapping, shaking,
Mhm.
falling out breath through the nose, out through the mouth, longer duration exhales, like 4 count in, 6 or 8 count out, doing some alternate nostril breathing, doing some breath retentions, different eye movement practices, not only things like EMDR, but like tracing the movement of the arms with just the eyes. There's some like neck massages that you can access, like the root of the vagus nerve. Um, Relaxing, like progressive relaxations in areas we tend to clench, like the jaw, the eyes, the throat, the shoulders, the belly, the pelvic floor. So feeling ground, even like tapping the
Grounding,
ground with our
definitely.
heels. Yeah,
Grounding is.
lying facing, we call it crocodile. It's like a downward facing asana where your front body is on the earth and it grounds all the currents, and these things that are like largely non-intellectual processes to just support you being able to finally soften, settle, open, feel safe in your body, and know that in this moment, to the degree that it's true, I'm safe in this moment, and get really microscopic with it. And I love the social component. We were speaking about the need for co-regulation, and when I don't have access to my ground, can I be with somebody who does? And so these are such profound tools. And I I'm so grateful. Like, I want to circle back to something you shared on the phone and at the beginning of the podcast today, which is that some of these tools that you've gleaned through yoga are showing up at this moment in this place. And it's like, it's after we spoke, it was one of these moments where I had tears in my eyes, and
Wow.
I called my kids, and I was like, guys, like, the work that I've been doing is like showing up in these spaces through the like vessel of this incredible human. And it's like, what you're doing, Noah, like, and it's taking these teachings, these tools, these practices, not only from yoga but from the various spaces that you are curating them, and just giving them wherever they're needed. Is I just want to like deep bow to you and to your heart and all you're moving through as a human, as a mother, and still showing up in service the way that you are is it is absolutely the medicine. If we could just multiply you and proliferate that consciousness into those interests, as you said, and it's chaotic and it's confusing, um, and so thank you for being you, for sharing your gifts. And I am curious about, to maybe drive this conversation into some of those spaces. Do you hold the Israel-Palestine conflict, war, whatever you want to call, whatever label we want to stick on it? Some people frame that as it's a holy war. Some people say, nah, that's not it. It's a territorial dispute. It's about land. Like, given your proximity, being born and raised in Israel, miles away from Palestine, you're like, what is this about? Like, it's been going on so long. Like, from your perspective, what is it about?
I'm not sure it's one thing that you can, and I'm not sure it's, again, there are many groups with different interests and with different agenda right now, and this is different. Again, I'm not sure right now it's the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I'm not sure this is about it. Hamas is, conflict you can solve. This is my belief. Conflict you can solve. You have the tools to solve. You have to listen to the other side. You have them to let them understand your side and to compromise and to speak. In the end, after, you go through all the process, conflict can be solved. Here, it's different. That is my feeling. And this was part of the shock. It's not about territory. By the way, Gaza is an example. Again, it's not about territory because Israel just in 2005, again, I'm not a politician and I'm not such a political person, but in 2005, Israel got out of Gaza it was the first step of the vision of two states to two people, which I believed. I really believe. I think every people need their homeland to feel safe, to celebrate their culture, to be able to build something and to have a vision. And this was in 2005, it was the first step. So again, and I remember myself back then, with Rabin and Sharon, and I demonstrate for this.
To withdraw.
To withdraw. And I was
Mhm.
arguing even with people from Israel. I was thinking this is the right thing to do, to let and to do the first step towards this vision. So maybe it will be a solution and will make this crazy area more peaceful. And I really believe in it. And Hamas, it's a tragedy, by the way, for the Palestinians too. So again, we are not talking right now. I don't feel we talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's something different. Hamas is a terror organization which do not want to compromise or he want to kill. This is his agenda. This is agenda killing. And on October 7th, that's what happened. He just killed everybody, babies, women, families, and it was massacred. Like, I learned this English word then. I didn't know it.
Mm.
And
Massacre.
yes, so it was a pure massacre without any agenda, just killing. And this was so shocking. And this was so, wow, pure evil. So it's not about territory, just doesn't want Israel to exist at all. And he wants to kill people because they are Jewish. That's it. And with this, you cannot work with. And the tragedy of the Palestinians there is that they really use them. So they hide in kindergarten, in schools, and it's such a challenge. I must tell you, again, I guess you will not hear about it in the news, but my brother was there and he said, what a challenge. We need to risk ourselves in order not to try not to damage people who are it. So it's literally the easier way is to they really do try not to damage, but it's almost impossible because everything is behind schools, behind kindergartens. Use the populations there. It's a tragedy. I feel that in a way, the Western mission, not Israel mission, is to free Gaza from Hamas. Really, it's not about the conflict there. That is my feeling. Again, conflict you can solve. You can speak and solve and sit, and maybe it will take you. Here, it's pure evil. People who use civils and use people, and this is a tragedy. I feel so sorry for the Palestine too, the Palestinian people who need to it's crazy. I feel sad. I feel it's a tragedy. So again, I'm not sure it's about the conflict. There was a plan and now I'm going back to the conflict. There is a plan, I think there was something on the table a couple of times, and I feel the leaders from both sides do not have the right, even motivation to solve the problem and to sit and maybe again, this is a tragedy. I feel the gap between both people and the leadership, both sides. It's so huge. So again, I can explain you about the conflict. I feel that October 7, it's not about a conflict. It's not about, there is nothing to do with terror organization that want to kill you. And this is so frustrated. And this is terrible. It's a tragedy. Again, I think behind countries like Iran and China and use even this organization and the people. So again, it's such a tragedy. It's so sad, and I don't know if you saw the film Nova. It's on Netflix. It's a documentary film from the phone of both sides of the people who were in the party and from the terror phone, mobile phone they took. It's amazing to see it. But
Definitely watch that. It's
called
thank you
Novia.
for sharing.
So
Yeah,
it's not
thank you for
about a
sharing how
conflict.
you felt it.
Yes, so even to explain about the conflict, which is complicated too, but I feel with the right leadership in both sides, it can be solved. In Hamas, Hamas is different. It's again, by the way, in Gaza, even now, once the 136 people will be back immediately, everything will stop. So, by the way, maybe it's my responsibility to reflect. For the last 20 years from Gaza, there are hundreds of rockets toward Israel. This is normal. This is happening all the time, which is crazy. Just imagine, I tried to explain in Jupiter to a friend of mine. Imagine Rialto. I used to live in Rialto, in the neighborhood called Rialto, which is so beautiful. Imagine a rocket just fall on the neighborhood. It's crazy. And sometimes people imagine this area as a desert. No, I live now in a neighborhood that looks like Rialto. And just imagine what happened just nearby the kids and the yellow buses. So this is happening all the time during the last 20 years. People in the south have 50 seconds, 15, sorry, 15, 1 5 second to go to the shelter, and they experience it hundreds of times for the last 20 years. And during the last 5 months, it's happened here in all over the country. And again, my son checking the application if we are close or we are far from, which is crazy. So again, the contest is crazy. I don't know. Again, maybe the general sentence is that I gave so much more credit in 2023 to humanity. And wow. So it's complex, and maybe
It's interesting.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's such a
So there
long
was a little
session
glitch
to
there, and I
learn the
thought you.
conflict. But again, October 7th is not about the conflicts. I think people need to understand it. And by the way, everything is so tiny here. Maybe I told you we had a guest from Ticuesta, just near Jupiter, a friend of my daughter from high school, and her mother. They came just a month before everything was happening, and she was shocked to see how tiny everything. So from the river to the sea, I have the sea is 12 minutes from my house, and the border is 12 minutes from my house. So just imagine it's 25 minutes from east to west in this point, in this line. 25 literally. And so everything, so Gaza is 1.5, maybe less than 1.5 hours from here. And this is far away. Yes, so we feel safe here, but it's very close. It's from Jupiter to Miami, maybe less. Yeah,
Especially when you think about the risk of the escalation of conflict into a broader regional war, and and
Scott, I want
I
to
mean
show
it's
you.
hard to.
I want to show you. I told you I'm in the shelter. I have a
Yeah.
cans of food. It's just in case of something happening. So this is the state of mind that maybe something can develop from the north, from Lebanon. And
Mhm.
yes, it's crazy, right?
So it's unfathomable. I would, from again the perspective of living in a safe way, which is what we should all aim and hope for. I'm taking in what you're saying and taking it. It's hard to know. I was having a conversation with my son yesterday. We were listening to a podcast interview of one of our presidential candidates, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., being interviewed by Dave Smith, who's a pretty much like a staunch libertarian, and so non-interventionist philosophy, and he's asking RFK, like, you're like, let's get out of Ukraine. We never should have went into Iraq. Afghanistan was a mess. Why is your policy this way everywhere except for Israel? What is so different about this? And they were going back and forth, and every time one of them would speak, my experience was, I was like, man, that's a good point. Well, that's a good point. And there's so many layers and to this that it looks one way on the surface, but it's hard to know what information is actually true and real. And having friends that are Palestinian, having friends that are Israeli, and listening to their experiences and really trying to genuinely understand what is at the core of the perspective. And I wanted to share a few comprehensions around it, offer it up for your reflection and insight, if that's okay.
Of course,
So without doing the whole going back, 2000 years and et cetera, and going through the Ottoman Empire and then British occupation and UN carves out this, piece of land goes to Israel. I think it's 56% or 53% of the territory, and there's been, that what is, Gaza, West Bank, East Jerusalem, shifting hands, different countries responsible for sort of, controlling. They never had their own sovereignty as being a nation. It's just the Palestinian territory, the Palestinian people, for generations have been indigenous to this land. And not just people that are Muslims, but Muslims, Christians, Jews, to varying faiths sharing this land, going in, through the period of what might be referred to as the Nakba, like to all these different, like contentious, the 6 Day War, like, and fast forward through all of this space, and I think about what was the status quo from, let's just take the last 20 years. And so Israel withdraws from Gaza, and by some accounts, I hear that withdrawal was like, and we left with greenhouses and capacity for like your own running water and this freedom to like create from that. But then I hear from Gazans a different story, that that access alone, seaports, airports, is restricted, that water is restricted, that food is restricted, that what you can do, where you can go, that's restricted. The settlements into the West Bank, the mowing the lawn, in population control, that it's hard for me to see 10/7 as like arising in a vacuum, where I imagine like what has been the plight of the Palestinian people, that even gave rise to wanting to put Hamas in power. Well, that was a vote that they chose to do that, and if you're under that kind of, whether it's oppression, occupation, um, open air prison, all the different things that we hear about that experience, you could understand, especially if when we're talking about like young men that are sometimes committing these atrocities. Well, if they're 18, 19, 20, this is all they've ever known, and they probably have family members that have died, and it's like you can understand the radicalization. And then I go to this, like, okay, like, wow, I can understand why, like, somebody just doesn't want to like launch a missile. There's a reason they want to launch a missile. And then I can understand on the Israeli side of going like, yeah, no, we need this Iron Dome. We're trying to be diplomatic. We're letting an area before we send a bomb in, but then before we bomb it, like Israel is doing that. They're saying like, go out of this area. We're about to bomb
Mm.
it, and then. But I also see refugee camps getting bombed. I see a response of 30,000 people being killed, 12,000 children, 20,000 of them orphaned. I see unbearable pain. A complete destruction of every building. And then I understand the response. Well, they're hiding underneath these buildings. But then I've also seen like, no, they weren't actually doing that. And then yes, they were. And then so I hear all of this information, right? And you kind of go like you're watching a tennis match, and trying to make sense of it, and I come back to the human level, and it's like, guys, like, what are we doing? Like I given everything, and then it kind of goes to a very similar argument, which is, we have to do this because they want to exterminate us, or they don't want to let us live in freedom. And so there's the justification seems to be, well, if we don't fight back, they'll continue to oppress us. If it was the case of the Palestinians, or if it's the case of the Israelis, if we don't do this, then in the form of Hamas or whatever terrorist group will come and try to extinguish Jews from the face of the earth. It's in Hamas's charter, that whole piece. And so then you hear the call for a ceasefire, and so I was, thinking about this and saying, okay, well, if both sides agree that the other side is actually committed to perpetrating violence upon them, if there was a ceasefire, or I'm sorry, if then ultimately you could do that sort of in stages, and then I heard you say, like, if they would return the hostages, this would end. But I know there was a call for a ceasefire by Hamas that just yesterday Bibi Netanyahu rejected the ceasefire, even given that it was going to include, in terms of the hostages, all the women, all the elders, anybody sick, and any child would all be returned, for any women and children, Palestinian prisoners. And then there would be stages through that. And his point in the rejection of it was like, no, because like we actually need to get rid of this threat. And I've heard a few people say this point around the rejection of ceasefire, which I think is it seems to be valid, and it's used as a leverage to regroup. So if Hamas is at like 50% power right now, and then there's a ceasefire, well, then there's a build back up, and it's just a buying time tactic, and then we're back into the same cycle. So like, how do you remove the threat once and for all if the threat is to try to extinguish you and your right to exist? And so I can understand that. And then I go back to this last piece that I wanted to share before getting your thoughts, which is like, it all seems so unnecessary. I don't mean to say that in a sort of like cheapened way, but it doesn't even seem to me like it's a battle between Israel and Palestine. It feels more like it's an agreement or an alignment between Israeli leadership and Hamas, or maybe it's Iran and it's the proxy and Hamas is the proxy. But this sense of like, we agree that we want to annihilate each other. We're operating in this low spectrum of consciousness. And so when at the highest centers of power is the lowest function of consciousness. And if we could raise the consciousness to the degree that the people that are developing higher consciousness were engaging and going into spaces of power, and then meeting somebody on the other side of a different territory, and they were the ones negotiating the peace treaties, would we have different outcomes? And so that's just a little of a like, blah, there was a lot there, but it from the outside seemed, being here in the US and trying to make sense of it, and seeing what are we doing to our children. Like, the Palestinians are Israelis. I don't want to deny someone's lived experience, but it's hard to, in the name of honoring our ethnicity, get so trapped in it that we use it as justification to end somebody else's life.
Wow. Gaza is a tragedy. Gaza is a real, real, real tragedy. I feel so sorry for the people there. I feel that I remember myself 30 years ago, I was for the first time in Gaza beaches. It was so romantic. It was amazing to see the beaches. So the potential is so huge. And I feel that again, I'm not a politician. I don't know enough. My belief that if leaders from both sides want, they can sit and solve problems. We know it, right, Scott? It's so easy if you want. If you want to solve something, even if it's complicated, you will solve it.
Right.
Uh,
The solution's in the mixture, but if somebody is committed to it, to not having that,
yeah. So, and
how do we have
I feel again the Gaza story is a tragedy. By the way, the Gaza has a border with Egypt. So again, potentially something could develop. Israel just saw that it was too much to be there. the price was so high. People were died from, and we need to find internally Israel to go outside from this place, but it has the potential. This is the tragedy. It has such a potential with good leadership, and I feel it's so much money go there, so much money. And if you see again, my brothers told me it's kilometers of tunnels with weapons, with bombs. So they invest so much money to do that instead of build something, which again with vision. I feel so sorry for the kids. That it's a tragedy, because if their leadership had a vision of building something good, and again receive help. I don't know enough about the rights. I know that the Egyptian don't want Gaza to be open to it. Again, this is tragedy. Nobody want Gaza, but nobody know how to solve this problem or how to help. And again, maybe I don't have a solution. I just feel that this is a tragedy, that if people would want to solve it together, it's possible. Uh, it's a tragedy. I'm sad to see kids. I cannot see it. I'm trying not to see it because I cannot see it.
It's too painful.
It's very, very, it's so sad. And on the other hand, as you said, like now the educate, like now people in Gaza who are controlled by Hamas, their agenda is killing. So what a challenge! What a challenge to build in this in these conditions, which I cannot explain it and I cannot understand it really, and it's very sad. I feel that it's a shame that there is no leadership that have good vision to this place and to those kids, and nobody want them. It's no, maybe again, maybe here the West can come and help to build a vision, to give sanction to the bad, and to give rewards to good things to do. The potential, it can be like Singapore, like theoretically, like the condition, the beaches are
I
so
heard there's
beautiful.
yeah, I've heard there's bids going on. I don't know how much of this is true or no, but I heard there's bids going on already to build resorts
What
there.
is it?
So,
Sorry.
which is interesting because I've heard there's bids out already to build resorts, like they're
I
that
hope
that,
so. I
that
think it
those
can,
kind.
but in order to do it, you need a vision. And I feel there is no vision, and no one who will have now the vision, no leader, no leadership, no positive. Again, I think that Israel tried to strengthen. There was like doing the. By the way, doing the. As I told you, the situation is Israel need to respond. I can tell you, in all the wars, by the way, Israel never start a war. Never. It always has to respond to something. Even to Gaza, it's as I described to you, all the time there are missiles from there, so rockets from there, hundreds. Again, I don't know. I have no solution because it's a problem. It's a sad problem, and I feel so sorry for the people in Gaza, for the women, for the children, for the good people who want to live, who want just to live, and I think they deserve the best. Uh, if you have a solution, I think it's our duty to find a solution. But right
Mm.
now, again, it's a terror nest. It's a terror nest with thousands of kilometers of tunnels, with weapon, with bombs, with rockets, and
Right. What could have been built instead of all of that? And so let's go to solution for a moment. I heard you say a little bit ago that you're in favor of a two-state solution. Um, and it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine from Palestine, and he was advocating for the need for it to be a one-state solution. And he said, call it whatever you want, call it Israel. I'm happy to have a passport that says Israel on it, as long as it's equal rights for everybody. And that even though there's Palestinians living in Israel, that they don't have the same rights. And I don't know anything about the details of this. But what are your thoughts on one state versus two state?
I must explain that there are many Arabs in Israel. There are Israeli Arabs and there are neighbors. It's like here we have many. We are neighbors, and of course they have the same rights. They can vote, of course. So it's like it's the same.
Your
The
response? Yeah.
Of course, and the like the West Bank is a problem too. Is a problem again. Israel, as I told you, Israel never started war. Even then, is the Jordanian started a war back then in '67, and Israel
Hmm.
won and occupied a territory. This is the West Bank. Uh, they never want it really. So it's again, Jordan doesn't want them. Israel doesn't really want this, and I think in this vacuum, terror organization enter. Um, I'm not sure I'm the person to ask. I don't know enough, but
Mm.
I feel that the only solution can be two states to two people. I feel that again maybe because Israel is a Jewish state, which again there is a tension here too. But this is the only solution, and the United Nations voted back then that Israel
Hmm.
has the right to exist, and Britain divides the territory between the Palestinians and the Jewish side. I don't like to use it. And Israel respect it until again the war started, the other side started, and Israel occupied again. Once you occupied in every country, you are the one who control this field. But I don't know. I feel that the only solution can be um to states for two people. But again, it's not obvious anymore. After Gaza, what happened in Gaza, people really, really scared about this situation because they said, okay, maybe because there is no leadership, strong leadership, positive leadership, maybe tomorrow we can find ourselves just near Iran. So there is a fear here. I hear those voices that said, no, we cannot let this happen again.
Hmm.
I think I think you have to come because it's so tiny. I'm against again. I want to give this area back to the Palestinians so they will control. But if you will see the geographically condition, you will see that 20 minutes from Tel Aviv, you
Hmm.
will see the West Bank, and it's on the mountain. So you sit there and you see all the countries, three 180 degrees of the countries. So, and it's 20 minutes. So you see everything. So just imagine, and again, I'm not such a, I'm not a military general who can, but just imagine bad people, bad interests, people with bad interests sit there and control all the country. And just imagine the situation from Gaza with rockets. So it's scary too. So I understand the people who scared, but I feel that we need to give chance. Again, Gaza was a chance. Gaza was example to give a chance, and it failed. Many people said you cannot do it again because it will fail. I personally want to believe that we need to give chance. We have no choice. There is no other solution. And I had enough from this conflict. I feel that both sides pay such a crazy price. And it's so sad. What a tragedy of so many young people who didn't come back to their families, to their children. And it's not fair. So I think the only option is a hope. I wish for a better leadership with a vision. This area can be a paradise if you think economically of cooperations, of I don't know, building vision together. It can be heaven. And it's very sad. It's a tragedy that interest of money, of weapon industry in enter this conflict too. And again, I'm not sure. Now I'm not sure
Absolutely.
anymore there is interest for peace. I think it's not popular anymore. And then this is very sad. Even the word peace is almost disappeared. Like, and I remember myself as a kid. We used to sing for peace. We have so many songs about peace, the peace that will come. I send you the song Lu Yehi, let it be, let the peace come. So it was something to desire for. It was a dream, it was a vision, and I feel that the leadership right now do not use it anymore as a vision, as a plan. And again,
On both
yeah,
sides, do you see that in when you say the leadership? I know you feel that way about Hamas. Is that inclusive of Israeli leadership as well when you say that, or are you seeing it more on the Palestinian side?
definitely both side right now has no vision, has no a real plan. I didn't vote for this government. I don't like it. I demonstrate for the last year for the Supreme Court rights, and we try hard to protect our democracy. This is the activism that I mentioned. I feel the duty to be part of this, to protect the democracy and our democratic states, principles, mechanism, which allowed us to improve ourselves, to judge ourselves, to make sure we are in the right direction. And so it's a challenge too. By saying leadership, I mean to both sides. But again, I feel that October 7th is something completely different. I feel it on the side and that's why, people here, the social situation during the last year was so tough here, inside Israel. People who want to protect the Supreme Court and people who do not. And on October 7th, it was such a shock and life. The feeling was that there is a life danger, life risk. So everybody were together. And the people here, not like the leadership, are amazing. So many gesture of togetherness and help and compassion. So again, I feel maybe there is a hope. The people in both sides, I think they need to bring the change to actively, this is my duty, to actively do good things, spread lights, actively, to be active. We have our duty to be active in that. And I hope from the people in both sides, the change will arrive. This is right now, as I see the leadership, this is the only option. It's sad to say that, but this is reality.
Thank you so much for sharing your vision and your heart. And I wanted to first just take a deep breath and receive everything you just said. And, um,
Wow.
I think something to close, if there is something from your heart as a human, a woman, a mother, wife, all the things, your sister, daughter, everything that you are, and being Israeli, as if you were given a microphone to speak for, not that everybody's in agreement, but if your voice could come through as the voice of the Israeli people for people that are living in Gaza, for the Palestinians, and you could send a message that's not coming through the leadership of Israel, but from one human to another, what would your message be?
First, I think about you. I think of you. I see you. Um, I want a good future for you. I think you deserve a good future for you, for your kids. And you deserve a leadership that will give you um, everything you need and a good vision to strive for. And I wish we could one day sit and with no borders, but this is again, wow, but I wish for that. I wish for that. Maybe more women need to be involved. I feel the world needs soft energy and more containing and less splitting and more integrating people who will be able to contain both side pain and speak and have and build good vision for everybody. Really, I think it's possible, and I feel very painful for your pain, and I want to say that. And I send I send you warm wishes and warm and softness too, to protect you from all the crazy context we are all experiencing right now. And I hope if I can give someone a tools, practical tools, I'm available, and I would love to give anybody. And I see you and I see your pain, and it's it's a shame that you need to go through it too, and that there are no leaders to stop everything and to take responsibility for our future and for our kids' future. We deserve better leadership, and I hope we'll find the energy and power to fight for that, for better leadership, better future, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you are doing to heal your own heart, first and foremost, and to show up in the way that you are. your loved ones, in your community, and just in this world. The way that you are present, with a soft heart amidst a very hard time is deeply inspiring, and I'm grateful that you are in my life, and I'm grateful for you being here today and sharing your heart, your perspectives, your journey, and your hopes and dreams, and your inspired vision for a more conscious leadership. And may that be so. May we all call that in, and maybe it is a ground up grassroots, from the people. But it does feel like, yeah, as soon as we give up hope and we stop using the word peace and we stop singing for peace and praying for peace and calling in peace, then then there is that vacuum. And so thank you for keeping that light on in your heart. And I know that's so core to the Jewish tradition, and
Definitely.
so I see you as a testament to your faith. Yeah. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. I respect you, and I'm grateful and appreciative for you, Noah.
Thank you
Thank you for
so much,
joining me.
both, even for enabling me to speak in this time, and thank you for your inspiration and the tool that you gave me. And again, as I said, your inspiration influence here and arrived to so many people that need it right now, and it's real. So thank you.
There's no words for that feeling. That ripple effect is real, and I'm grateful, and I know I'm on the receiving end of it as well, and I'm grateful to my teachers and the people that have come from all these healing traditions. And so, thank you to everybody for listening and tuning in and supporting this podcast, because that is the hope for it, is to continue to take healing tools and explore what it would be like to bring them into the context where they're deeply lacking and deeply needed, and start to make a movement move in that direction. So to be on the podcast, to be listening to it in whatever way you're connecting, thank you for being part of this vision. And until next time.
Until next
All
time, thank
right.
you, and
Thank you, Noah.
amen. Thank you. Bye,
Amen.
my dear.